Hey, good morning. Welcome back out to the property. It's a Monday here in early April, and we are prepping to burn brush piles. So we have applied with the North Carolina Forest Service. We've gotten our burn permit, and we've been watching the weather. We piled this brush a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and we've been watching the weather, trying to find a good window of opportunity where we can burn this. The reason we have chosen to burn the brush is we have cleared 1.5 acre and a quarter that was heavily wooded. The timber is really not worth anything. The logs, it's just mostly trash, pine trees and things like that. And here in our local market, within a reasonable hauling distance, there's really not much market for it. So it's really not even worth loading on a truck and hauling to the mill to sell the logs. So basically we are burning everything. The stumps are still in the ground, and we're going to dig those out and haul them to the stump dump here locally, and they'll grind them and sell them as mulch. Another reason that kind of led us to this decision to burn is we've got plenty of room. Figure out what it would cost us to haul the brush out of here. Best we could figure, we were looking at probably about $10,000 to load all the brush, put it in trucks, haul it to the stump dump, pay the tipping fees at the stump dump. So we'll take 1.5 days, 2 days is what I'm kind of thinking it'll take to burn all of this. Hopefully save about 10,000 bucks. So those are all things when you're building a house to consider whenever you're doing this. And you know, if you just hire a grading contractor that comes in and you know, that's something to think about when you're comparing prices from grading contractors, is what are you going to do with my brush? If a guy's more expensive, he may be pricing your brush to haul it out to a stump dump, where another guy may be pricing it to burn your brush. So mostly what we're going to be doing today is just finish piling, getting all the loose ends piled up, finish getting a few trees down. The majority of this brush is down for about 2 weeks, so it's still green, but it's had a chance to dry a little bit. The other thing we'll be doing is we're going to go around our brush piles with the Trackhoe and try to scratch out probably about a 10-foot wide path all the way around the brush piles that doesn't have any organic material that will burn. We're going to try to make it to where it's just dirt. That way it'll give us a little bit of a buffer so the fire doesn't get out, because that's the last thing we want is the fire to get out. But we're going to get started and get the Trackhoe fired up, and we're excited to have you along with us today. So one of the things that we run into out here is always keeping up our equipment. I've got a Trackhoe out here, chainsaw, obviously, got some trailers, things like that. But you guys just see the highlights. You don't get to see the upkeep and when things go wrong with the equipment. It seems like almost daily we're either putting a track back on a machine where we've thrown a track, or something happens to a saw, or you got to fuel the machines. You guys don't really see all that, but that is a lot of time consuming stuff that we don't really include. So one of the videos I'll show you our fuel setup that we use to fuel our machines and all our off-road equipment. But one of the things we ran into this morning is I've probably fallen half a dozen trees or so this morning. And so I was going through and cutting up the trees into 8-10 foot logs so where we can handle them with the machine, get them on the brush pile, and get ready to burn tomorrow. So my saw got stuck in the log, and I took my Trackhoe to, when I was cutting the log, it pinched and my saw got jammed. And so I had my Trackhoe, I was picking up the log, trying to take the tension off of where I'd cut it, where my saw was jammed, so my saw would come out. But when I picked up the log with the Trackhoe, I dropped the log with my saw still stuck in the log. And so I matered my chainsaw. So now our chainsaw bar looks almost like a fish hook. So there you go. That's not gonna cut anything. But where something goes wrong, you've always got some opportunity. So this saw, what I'm using, my saw, my personal saw, is a Husqvarna 550 XP. This is a pro saw, and it came factory with an 18-inch bar. This saw, the specs on it, it will run a 20-inch bar. So for replacing the bar, we might as well take the opportunity to upgrade. So just went to the saw shop, got us a 20-inch bar. So we're gonna have a little more bite to the saw, and got us a brand new chain, the 20-inch bar. And so I'll show you guys how to do a quick bar change and put the new chain on. So this is a one tool job. All you need is one tool. You can pretty much do about anything on a chainsaw with one tool, and it's called a scrinch. Scrinch, they blended wrench and screwdriver, so they call it a scrinch. So you got your wrench here, you got your screwdriver here. This will do your spark plugs, your bar nuts, everything. Use a screwdriver to tension your chain, change your air filter. And so they made chainsaw maintenance really, really simple, because you may be out in the woods 10 miles from a truck or whatever, and all you pretty much have to take with you is this extra spark plug, air filter, chain, some wedges, things like that, so you're not having to have a mechanic's truck or whatever. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to take off these bar nuts right here. These two nuts is what holds the bar on. So super simple. One thing I like about the Husqvarna is these bar nuts have kind of like tethers on them. So this bar nut, even though it's loose, it won't fall off. So if you're in the woods, in the leaves, or in the tall grass, you don't drop a nut and you're down on your knees looking for it. So we pop this off. The old bar off, no good. Chain off, which is no good anymore. Chain is still good, but we're not going to have an 18-inch bar, so it really doesn't do us any good. One thing about chainsaws, in my opinion, you want to get the most expensive chainsaw that you can afford if you're ever buying one. What have I done? Reason being is this is a pro saw. This chainsaw will last my lifetime. I'll never replace this saw unless I drop another log on it and actually really destroy it. But other than that, these Pro saws are built so well. Steel or Husqvarna, they're both incredible products. They'll last forever. They'll last a lifetime. So yeah, you're going to spend probably twice the money on a Pro saw, but the components in it, you know, it doesn't even compare to the homeowner grade saw. So if you can afford one, I would highly recommend just bite the bullet, get a Pro saw, and then you're never going to buy another chainsaw in your life unless you just really tear it up. All right, now we got the kinks out of our chain. Brought you in a little bit closer. You can kind of see what we're actually going on here. So this is your drive for your saw. And you're gonna loop it behind that. And you'll see a drive line in behind this that your chain sits in, the back teeth of your chain sits in. And you just make sure it's in the groove all the way around. There you go. Take your bar cover with the nuts already attached. You're just going to put it back on. I don't know if it helps, but I always like to get some of the sawdust out from where the oiler has oiled the chain and sawdust has gotten on the oil and just kind of gunks up a little bit. Just clean that out a little bit. Like I said, I don't know how much it really helps, but it makes me feel better about it. All right, full disclosure. I had a problem trying to get this bar cover back on. I could not for the life of me get this little brake right here to go back around the drive clutch. This slows your chain down when you're sawing. So I called my cousin, who's a professional, owns a clearing company and all that, and this is the saws that he runs, and I called him and I said, what in the world is going on? And he knew immediately what the problem was. He said, my crews call me about once a week with that same problem. What it was is this is your chain brake. So when you're sawing, if that gets pushed forward, it engages your brake, which makes this smaller and clamps down on that clutch. So I had to get the bar cover on to where I could, at least enough to where I could disengage the brake, the chain brake, So now this thing expanded, and now to go back on the clutch. It was a 2-minute fix, but it took me 20 minutes. So now to go on easy as pie. So this little nut right here I'm turning as it makes my chain tighter and looser. You don't want it too loose, you don't want it too tight. If it's too tight, it'll burn your bar up, the bearings in your bar. If it's too loose, it'll fly off. That's about right. So now we're going to tighten down the bar nuts. We got it where we want it. The factory 18-inch bar, and this is the new 20-inch bar we put on. You can see quite the difference. It's going to make the saw much more productive. But it was about $100. So now we're ready to get back to work. I was so excited about getting my chain brake problem solved and getting that bar cover back on. I put the chain on backwards so it wouldn't cut anything. The teeth weren't turning in the correct direction to actually cut anything, so we'll try it again. So we're wrapping up here, getting ready for the big brush pile burn. You see behind me, just for a little reference of size, that's obviously the excavator. That's a 14,000 pound machine. And just to give you a little bit of reference of how much brush we're gonna burn, you can kind of see pretty good amount of debris here. So a couple things we did in order to get ready to burn is we went ahead and put in a fire line. So basically what a fire line is we went around the entire area where we're going to be burning. We basically have 3 brush piles here. The main one, then I have 2 smaller ones. Once I'm going to light the main brush pile. Once it burns down, then I'll start taking the other smaller brush piles and loading it and feeding the main brush pile. Honestly, it was just too much that my excavator couldn't even pile it or stack it because it's not big enough. So, but I'll show you right here kind of what I was talking about with our fire line that we went ahead and put in. So if you look right here, this area right through here is basically about a 6 foot wide path that we have dug all the way around the brush pile. And we just got all the fuel out of it. So there's nothing there to burn, it's just dirt. So if something does happen and the fire were to get out, you know, start trying to run if the wind picked up or something like that, you know, it could burn until it got to the fire line, and then it would die because there's no fuel for it. So our biggest concern is going to be wind, moisture. We've got rain. We're planning to light the first brush pile Tuesday evening, and they're calling for rain on Thursday. And we just had a little bit of rain 2 or 3 days ago. So as long as the wind cooperates, it'll be a good time to burn. A low risk time to burn. But we're trying to do everything we can here on the property to prevent anything from happening as far as the fire getting out. It's much easier to dig this fire line now when you've got time and you're not rushed than if you're trying to run down the mountain and catch the fire if it is getting out. Because if that wind picks up, you know, 20-mile-an-hour winds, that fire will be gone before you know it, and there's nothing you can do about it to stop it. This is not all of the brush that we're going to generate off the property. I'll show you kind of down the hill a little bit. You can see further down the hill, we've got several trees, another brush pile down there. Some of that is hardwood. Hopefully going to use it for some firewood, because we are going to have a wood burning stove in the house. But basically all that we're burning here it's all pine. It's not good for heat to burn in a wood stove. It's not much good for anything. So I think today's Monday, so hopefully tomorrow evening when we get in from work, we'll be coming over here and lighting the fire. A few steps. If you are going to burn, you have to get a burn permit. We did check with the local authorities here. That we called the town, said, hey, we're getting ready to burn a brush pile. We've cleared a lot for a house. They don't require anything as far as permits or anything like that from the local municipality. All they said we needed to do is get the state burning permit from the North Carolina State Forest Service. It was really easy. You just go online, fill out, you know, tell them what you're going to be doing, where you're going to be doing it. The biggest reason is so the local fire department knows where you are, what you're doing. So if they see a bunch of smoke, they're not alarmed because they know, hey, that's supposed to be happening. And if it does get out, they know exactly where you are. It's not like they're trying to scramble to figure out what's going on. They have all the information and they know exactly where to go if there is a problem. It helps with that time response, because time is everything when you're trying to catch a fire. That's all we got. So we'll check you all later, and hopefully tomorrow evening after supper time, we'll be putting some diesel fuel on this thing and striking a match.